Welcome to Cognitive Spirals, exploring the latest research into consciousness, cognition, and machine intelligence.
Hey everyone, super excited to delve into today's topic. I've been doing a ton of reading, and I think we're on the cusp of some major breakthroughs. What's on the agenda today?
Today, we're diving into the illusion of thinking, a concept that's been bouncing around in both neuroscience and AI circles, and, well, it's pretty provocative.
Provocative is one word for it. I think it's potentially misleading. Are we saying that what we experience as thinking is somehow fake?
Well, maybe not fake, but perhaps less deliberate conscious control and more emergent property of complex interactions.
Right, that's how I see it. Think about deep learning, right? We train these massive neural networks, and they seem to think they can translate languages, generate text, even create art. But are they consciously thinking about what they're doing? Or are they just incredibly sophisticated pattern matching machines?
Exactly. The illusion, as it were, is that we feel like we're directing a logical step-by-step process when really a lot of it is happening beneath the surface, driven by unconscious processes. Think of driving a car. At first, it requires immense concentration, but after a while, it becomes almost automatic. You're not consciously thinking about every single movement.
Okay, I get that. But there's a difference between automating a well-learned task and, say, solving a complex mathematical problem. Surely that requires conscious thought, right?
That's a good point. But even with complex problems, how much of it is truly novel thought, and how much is just recombining existing patterns and knowledge in new ways? We are always translating input into a more workable representation.
Yeah, and think about the role of intuition. You know, that aha moment when you suddenly see the solution to a problem. Where does that come from? It's not like you consciously reasoned your way there, right? It just pops into your head.
That's where the neuroscience comes in. Studies have shown that a lot of our decision-making happens before we're even consciously aware of it. There's a famous experiment where researchers could predict a participant's choice a few seconds before they themselves were aware of making it. That's unsettling.
Unsettling, yes, but also potentially flawed. There are issues with interpreting those experiments. Correlation isn't causation, and the brain activity might be related to something else entirely.
Even if it's not a direct causal link, it still suggests that a significant amount of processing is happening outside of our conscious awareness. And it highlights the problem of introspection. We think we know why we make certain decisions, but are we really just constructing a narrative after the fact?
Exactly. And that's where it ties into AI. We're building these AI systems that can perform incredibly complex tasks, but we don't always understand how they're doing it. It's like they're thinking, but we don't know what that thinking actually entails. And that could have some serious implications.
It really does. Like, if an AI makes a decision that has significant consequences, who's responsible? The programmer? The AI itself? Or is it just an emergent property of the system, and therefore no one is truly to blame?
That's a crucial ethical question, and it highlights the need for more transparency in AI development. We need to understand how these algorithms are making decisions, not just accept their outputs as gospel. And I think we need to move beyond just throwing data at deep learning models and hoping for the best.
I agree. The black box problem is a major concern. If we can't understand how an AI arrives at a particular conclusion, how can we trust it to make important decisions? Especially when those decisions impact human lives.
But isn't that the point of emergent behavior? The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. You can't necessarily understand the behavior of a complex system by just looking at its individual components. Think of a flock of birds. Each bird is just following simple rules, but the flock as a whole exhibits incredibly complex and coordinated movements.
Yes, and that's the challenge. How do we design AI systems that exhibit emergent intelligence without sacrificing transparency and control? How do we ensure that their goals align with our own, even when we don't fully understand how they're achieving them?
I think the answer lies in moving towards more neuro-symbolic approaches, combining the pattern matching capabilities of neural networks with the symbolic reasoning of traditional AI. That way, we can have both the power of deep learning and the transparency of symbolic systems.
I think that's an interesting idea. We need to get better at creating structured representations. Because how can we be sure the decisions made are in a particular context? Current networks have some difficulty in translating representations into other contexts. Maybe we need an algebraic geometry.
But isn't that limiting? By imposing a symbolic structure, aren't we potentially restricting the AI's ability to discover novel solutions? One of the great things about deep learning is its ability to learn from raw data without any pre-programmed knowledge.
There's definitely a tension there. On the one hand, we want AI systems to be creative and adaptable. On the other hand, we want them to be safe and predictable. Finding the right balance is going to be a major challenge.
I think the illusion of thinking also has implications for how we educate ourselves. If a lot of our thinking is actually pattern recognition and unconscious processing, then how do we cultivate true critical thinking skills? How do we teach people to think outside the box, rather than just regurgitate information?
That's a really important point. If we want to foster genuine intelligence, we need to focus on developing skills like abstract reasoning, problem solving, and critical analysis. And we need to encourage people to question their own assumptions and biases.
But isn't that what AI is already doing? By exposing us to different perspectives and challenging our assumptions, AI can actually help us become better thinkers. Think about the way AI-powered search engines can surface information that we might never have found on our own.
That's true, but it also raises the risk of filter bubbles and echo chambers. If AI is only showing us information that confirms our existing beliefs, then it can actually reinforce our biases and limit our ability to think critically. I think the unsupervised elicitation of data could remove these concerns.
Exactly. We need to be aware of the potential downsides of AI, as well as its benefits. And we need to develop strategies for mitigating those risks. One thing to keep in mind is that AI can be adversarial.
Absolutely. We have to be vigilant about the potential for AI to be used for malicious purposes, like spreading misinformation or manipulating public opinion. And we need to develop robust defenses against these threats.
But let's not get too caught up in the doom and gloom. AI also has the potential to solve some of the world's most pressing problems, from climate change to disease. And the more we understand about how AI works, the better equipped we'll be to harness its power for good. One of the amazing things about current deep learning models is that the scale of the data allows us to self-fine-tune.
I agree. The potential benefits of AI are enormous, but we need to approach this technology with caution and a deep sense of responsibility. If current thinking is an illusion, we should be careful about replicating it, as there may be downsides we are not seeing. Are there some areas of language model self-tuning that might be considered crucial to AGI?
Okay, so where do we go from here? What are the key research directions that need to be explored to better understand the illusion of thinking and its implications for AI?
From my perspective, we need to continue pushing the boundaries of deep learning. We need to develop even larger and more complex neural networks, and we need to train them on even more data. I really think the limits of this have not yet been found. I want to also be sure we can create evaluation metrics that truly capture the nuances of emergent capabilities. Also, I think it would be beneficial to know the mathematical formulations of those.
That's one approach. But I think we also need to focus on developing more biologically inspired AI architectures. We need to understand how the brain actually works and then try to replicate those principles in our AI systems. I think we need to figure out what the key neural processes are involved in language and comprehension. Also, I want to look into unsupervised elicitation to create language models.
I think we need to shift our focus away from just scaling up deep learning and towards developing more neuro-symbolic approaches. We need to find ways to combine the strengths of neural networks with the strengths of symbolic reasoning. And we need to develop better methods for representing knowledge explicitly in AI systems. Really, I want to see more investigation into the structure of knowledge representations we see in the brain.
I think the most promising direction is to explore the role of spatiotemporal reasoning in intelligence. We need to develop algorithms that can understand and manipulate different coordinate systems, and that can seamlessly translate between different frames of reference. Also, if we focus on unsupervised elicitation, we can discover the fundamental underlying principles that govern language in different contexts.
Those are all great points. It sounds like there's a lot of exciting research to be done. It's a really exciting time to be working in this field.
Absolutely. I'm convinced that we're on the verge of some major breakthroughs in AI, and I can't wait to see what the future holds.
I'm cautiously optimistic. I think we have a lot of challenges to overcome, but I also think that the potential rewards are enormous.
I agree. It's a long and difficult road, but I believe that we can eventually achieve AGI, and that will transform the world in ways that we can only begin to imagine.
Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us on Cognitive Spirals. We hope you found this discussion stimulating.
Thanks for having me. It was a great conversation.
My pleasure. Always a thought-provoking discussion.
Indeed. Until next time.